So in the last video, we looked at the inquiries update on disclosure from the Post Office, and they are by far and away the providers of the largest amount of documents that the Post Office inquiry are waiting on. Let's hear what the Post Office's response to the disclosure issues for Phase 5 and 6 has been, and jump into the inquiry.
The inquiry and the Post Office also discuss what the inquiry understood to be relatively ad hoc and less significant potential document sources, i.e. other than Microsoft Exchange. This was outlined in the meeting minute at paragraph 10. Quote, Mr. Jackson then took the inquiry legal team through the work completed by the Post Office regarding other potential document sources, including Mimecast, SMS, and instant messaging, and e-media sources, brackets, corporate devices, servers, backup tapes, and file stores. Post Office's representatives confirmed that they had sent and were still sending questionnaires regarding data sources to specific former Post Office employees and board members. Material held by third-party advisors and material relating to whistleblowing was also discussed. In short, the inquiry understood that work was still ongoing in relation to some of the additional data sources, but should Post Office have any material update, and in particular, should any particular data source contain highly relevant material, Post Office would alert the inquiry as soon as possible. On distributing the minute to core participants, the inquiry noted that as the disclosure process by the Post Office was continuing, and the disclosure of additional documents to the inquiry had only recently started, I had advised you that the inquiry legal team ought to continue to monitor the Post Office's compliance with the inquiry disclosure requirements and report to you at regular intervals. The reporting ought to include whether the Post Office continued to meet the deadlines the inquiry had set in order to enable the Phase 5 and 6 oral hearings to proceed and thereafter continued as scheduled. At that stage, I and the solicitor to the inquiry advised that we considered it premature for the inquiry to hold a further disclosure hearing prior to the commencement of Phases 5 and 6 today. You considered our advice and confirmed you agreed with it, but in the light of the historic disclosure issues and the disruptive nature of the Post Office's late disclosure of Microsoft Exchange material in Phase 4, you noted that you wanted to keep this issue under very close consideration. You also noted that you would not hesitate to hold a hearing should it become necessary in due course. Throughout February and March, the Post Office continued to disclose a large volume of material as a result of its Microsoft Exchange disclosure failings and the remediation exercises put in place to rectify them. The last of these productions was made on the 22nd of March 2024. Can I turn to the present issue then?
So there's the previous issues. Has there been some lessons learnt by the Post Office from this, and have they resolved it for Phase 5 and 6 is the key question here, I think.
On Thursday, the 28th of March, the legal representatives for the Post Office notified the inquiry that the Post Office would be providing the inquiry with documents that day and the following week in relation to witnesses giving evidence during the first week of Phases 5 and 6 of the hearings and in the latter part of April, or documents which might otherwise be, quote, of interest to the inquiry. The volume of documents was said to be in the low hundreds and no more than 1,000, and to have come from, quote, a last check scoping exercise.
I mean, is Horizon doing the counting here? The low hundreds to maybe 1,000, surely. Surely, I mean, literally. How many documents have you got in your folder if we're talking about digital documents?
Particularly in relation to documents from third-party advisors. Some such documents were in response to the inquiry's Section 21 notice, issued as long ago as the 21st of July 2023, known as Section 21.3. Others were not responsive to a notice or a request from the inquiry, but were otherwise of interest. As I say, Section 21.3 was sent by the inquiry to the Post Office back on the 21st of July last year, in which the inquiry mandated that the Post Office disclose several categories of material relevant to Phases 5 and 6 of the inquiry, i.e. documents addressing what was defined in the notice as relevant issues. The relevant issues including reviews of Horizon carried out by Ernst & Young, Deloitte, KPMG and Linklaters. The notice expressly stated the documents that the documents be those created by, sent to, or received by, recorded a conversation or meeting involving, or otherwise made reference to 19 specific individuals within the Post Office. The individuals named in the notice included, but were not limited to, Paula Venables, Alice Perkins, Olwen Lyons, Angela Vanden Bogart, Mark Davis, Tim Parker, and Susan Crichton. At 5:32 on Thursday, the 28th of March, the Post Office sent a cover letter for a production of 1,071 documents. The cover letter noticed that the Post Office had, quote, initiated 2 assurance exercises, the first being a review of specific third-party advisor material, and the second being search and review of email inboxes of personal assistants, PAs, to the Section 21(3) individuals, and other email inboxes of potential relevance where considered appropriate for this exercise. The letter further explained that the Post Office's, quote, Section 21(3) search methodology focused on the relevant individuals' data sources. Third-party advisor files and personal assistant emails have previously been reviewed for other Rule 9s and Section 21s, as explained in previous interim disclosure statements. However, as part of assurance, Post Office has now run such searches across specific third-party advisor files, as was set out in the letter. So such third-party advisors included those who the inquiry had specifically named in the Section 21 notice, including Linklaters, Deloitte, and KPMG. The Post Office explained that within the production of 1,071 documents, 788 of them were said to be relevant to Section 21(3), of which 583 related to witnesses, and 15 documents were said to be, quote, of high relevance and material. 44 documents were said to be documents of interest, being documents that the Post Office said were not directly responsive to the notice, but were otherwise of relevance to the inquiry's terms of reference. Of those, 6 related to witnesses. The remaining 239 documents were family members of such documents. The Post Office noted that a number of the documents could be apparent duplicates of previous documents already produced, but that information to assist in identifying duplicates would be provided separately. So the Easter break then took place between Friday the 29th of March and Monday the 1st of April. At around 10 a.m. on the 2nd of April, the Post Office's legal representative contacted the inquiry legal team to note that further documents were to be expected. The Post Office requested a meeting with the inquiry to provide an update and discuss how the Post Office intended to disclose further documents. At 11:47 on the 2nd of April, the inquiry confirmed it would be grateful if the Post Office could please provide the inquiry with the information it should have or would be assisted in having in relation to the late disclosure that was relevant to hearings or witnesses this week. At 6:58 p.m. that day, the Post Office sent the inquiry a 4-page letter seeking, quote, to provide a brief update regarding the Post Office's further urgent witness-focused review to best assist the inquiry with anticipated timings for further productions.
I mean, there's a lot of words being used here, isn't there, to describe what's going on by the Post Office. It'll be interesting to see if it actually results in the production of everything that the inquiry's asked for phases 5 and 6.
That letter's been provided to call participants, and I'm not going to repeat it. However, it was in this letter, received after hours on Tuesday, that the inquiry was informed that the Post Office intended to make, quote, a small number of further Burgess Salmon Field Fisher productions in the near future of further documents relevant to phases 5 and 6. It was said that most will be directly relevant to witnesses scheduled to appear later in April and then in May to July, but a limited amount will relate to witnesses scheduled to appear during this week, i.e. starting today. The letter said that the Post Office anticipated that the documents that relate to witnesses appearing this week are likely to be low in number and or not likely to contain many documents that will give rise to potential questions for those witnesses, but will rather, particularly for non-Post Office or Royal Mail Group witnesses, for the most part be documents that refer to them. Importantly, the letter said that the Post Office anticipated making yet further productions of material following 5 further reviews. It confirmed that the reviews were not related to the Microsoft Exchange remediation process. But as noted already, the documents were relevant to phases 5 and 6 and to witnesses scheduled to be called as early as this week.